So please, again, this is a webinar, so we can't see or hear you. Put all of their questions in the chat or the Q&A function. And just a friendly reminder, if you during this webinar or after this webinar, have any sort of questions about any specific accounts that you have quoting or like active in your book, due to the relationship that we have with employers, Attune is the agent with employers. So make sure to reach out with those questions to Attune directly so that we can hopefully get you an answer. And if we need any clarification from employers, Attune ourselves, we will make sure to chat with Diantha and her team. So that is, I believe, all the housekeeping notes that I have for today, and I will hand this off to Brian and Diantha.
Perfect.
Sorry, I just had to unmute myself. Let me go back into the presentation. Okay. So today's agenda, my name is Brian, and just going over today's agenda, I'll introduce myself and Diantha. We'll learn a little bit about employers and our relationship. I'm gonna dive into the workers' comp appetite. We'll learn about employers' values, the best practices while quoting, and just with our relationship with employers. I'll go over payment plans. And then lastly, I'll do a live workers' comp demo, and then we'll finish with the Q&A. So a little bit about myself. My name is Brian Holst. I am the Carrier Partner Associate at Attune, and I've been with Attune since July of 2019. My job with employers includes product maintenance with our workers' comp team, working on bind requests, referrals, eligibility concerns as they come up. And my previous work experience and insurance experience is I studied risk management and insurance at Temple University. And then, sorry guys, I moved to New York in 2019 to begin my insurance career with Attune. And a fun fact about me, I rode on a log flume with Honey Boo Boo and her mom when I was at SeaWorld in high school. And my favorite food is Korean barbecue. Then I'm gonna pass it off to Diantha.
Perfect, thank you everyone. I'm Diantha Kelly, and I am the Client Relationship Manager for Attune. And my role is I handle everything that Attune brings my way. So it's the entire relationship. And we just want to make sure together that we're achieving that operational excellence. And I hope that you're feeling that. So I was at one point the Director of Sales Excellence here at Employers, which we work to improve processes internally. But before that, I was also in sales and project manager for Employers. I've been here since, well, now it's 26 years. So started in 1997. Yes, the fun fact about me is that I was living in the Alaskan bush for my senior year of high school. So, watch those bush people. That was a crazy time. My parents decided that they wanted to be homesteaders. And as a senior in high school, you can imagine what fun that was. And then my favorite food is I do love Italian food. I'm trying to make just these special dishes and also raviolis and things like that. I'm not that good, but I try. And then sourdough, which takes all day. So I haven't done that in a while, but I do love doing it.
So I can start just discussing our partnership with employers. Our relationship began in 2018, and our employers workers' comp product is our third Attune product. We offer competitive commission with employers. So I believe right now it is 12% new business and 10% renewal. And then with our relationship, we are a digital partner with employers. So what that means is employers and Attune developed an API where all the information that you guys as the brokers put in the Attune portal will get transferred over to the employer's system. So there is no direct appointment needed with employers. Like I said, everything will go directly through the Attune portal and be relayed to employers. And then Diantha, do you want to discuss more about a relationship?
Yeah, I mean, we have, Attune is one of the fastest growing partners that we have in the company for especially in our digital space. So they've been definitely great to work with, and we're always thinking of ways to improve the customer experience by integrating all of our products and services that we offer, which we're going to go into a little bit more, about Appetite, and then some of our association endorsements. Some of you may have seen where we've revised the quotes because there are discounts that are available. We'll talk about a little bit about the injured employee hotline, how to report a claim that makes it really nice and easy, return to work programs, and then flexible payment options. So yeah, we've, I believe that our partnership is really closely intertwined. We look at Attune as a branch of employers, or an arm of employers. We're that closely tied together. Did you want to take this one, Brian?
I can take it, yeah. So just going over our eligibility. So 75% of US businesses fall within employer's Appetite, and the classes range from manufacturers, retail, restaurants, hospitality services, offices, wholesalers, and more. Employers is, which I'll get into a little bit later, has started to expand into more artisan contractor classes like plumbers, electricians, and I'll discuss more of that Appetite in a little bit. And the employer's product is available in all states and Washington, D.C., except the monopolistic states such as Washington, Wyoming, North Dakota, and Ohio. And the Appetite is fairly consistent across all states. There are just state-specific things that you have to keep in mind, but for the most part, like I said, Appetite is consistent across the board.
Just a quick question that came up about Florida. Yes, Florida is also, it's all part of that. So I can take this one too. Okay. So just to let you know that we do have so when you put in a quote or a submission on to the Attune platform, and it's a class code that we want, which is, one of those businesses that's US businesses that fall within, 75% of those businesses. Could be a restaurant, it could be an auto repair, it could be a plumber. We have certain thresholds by state, premium thresholds, where you can get an instant quote online. So for example, Arkansas and DC, you can quote up to 30,000, where New Jersey, California, and must mention Texas is also, you can get a quote up to 50,000. So for those states that have higher rates, for example, like California has higher rates than Arkansas because they're so much more litigious in the state of California. So we do charge higher premiums, but most carriers do. But the great thing is that you can get a quote for up to $50,000 without having an underwriter have to look at that account. So that's been really successful with Attune. Another area that we wanted to highlight today was that we do have association discounts. And while they're not necessarily built into the Attune platform for you to select an association at this time, we do have somebody that is always there. He's kind of our watchdog to make sure that you're getting the discounts on the employer side. So if you put in a California risk and they are already a member of the California Restaurant Association, we're going to requote that account and give you that 5% discount. I believe Colorado has an 8%. Yes, you got that there. And then you can actually, in California, we have the opportunity to bundle if somebody has Anthem Blue Cross, and it's really just a question, guys. You don't have to be the agent of record, but if you find out that they have a group Anthem Blue Cross account, you're going to save 10% on the workers' comp, let's say that they're also a member of the California Restaurant Association, that's another 5%. So you're getting a 15% discount from just these associations, and just by asking the question. You don't have to get them to sign up. You don't have to do anything. It's just a question if you want to help your agent save money. One thing I will say, this is not an all-inclusive list of our associations, but we have probably, I want to say 10 to 15 different associations. So they don't cover every single state, but where they do apply, we are going to try to make sure that your submissions and your insureds are getting the most discounts that we could possibly give them.
Okay, so I'm going to dive a little deeper into the employer's appetite. So starting off, we have hospitality and food services. So applicants who offer delivery are subject to referral. And the top classes under this category would be bed and breakfasts, country clubs, restaurants, food trucks, and casual dining. And then moving on to bars and nightclubs, applicants must have 2 or more employees on duty at all times. And then ineligible applicants would include businesses such as organized raves or gentlemen's clubs. And then it's important to note too that any crowd control or bouncers would make this out of appetite. So for example, if the insured has an ID checker or someone doing security out front, you want to keep that in mind that it might not be a good fit for employers. And then the top classes under this category would be bars, wineries, and beer gardens. Then moving into retail stores and drivers. So employers allows delivery within a 50-mile radius. Over 50 miles would be ineligible. Under 50 miles is in appetite with employers. The sale of CBD, vapes, or electronic cigarettes are ineligible. So no vape shops or any sort of retail stores with the sale of those products. And the top classes under this category would be clothing stores, electronic and cell phone stores, florists, and supermarkets. And then lastly on this slide would be medical services. Ineligible applicants would include rehab clinics, hospitals, or emergency room services. And the top classes under this would be dentists, optometrists, psychologists, and physicians. And something I want to mention under medical services too, I see a lot of our agents quote medical offices under clerical. However, any sort of interaction in a patient or medical setting, their employers does have a class code for physicians, and depending on the state, there will be a physicians and clerical together class code, which would be more appropriate for medical services, or you could add physician class code, and then if there were any clerical employees, you could also add that 8810 clerical class code as well. But it's important to have that medical governing class code on there. And then moving into the next categories, we have schools. So applicants with residential daycare operations, unless it's renovated for commercial use, are ineligible. So no at-home daycares with employers. And then the top classes would include colleges, vocational schools, childcare centers, nurseries, and charter schools. Moving into professional services, applicants with no employees, such as freelancers or owners, are ineligible. I do want to mention that employers has shifted their appetite on kind of ghost policies, which would be owner-only policies where there are no employees. So employers can write those now, except for any contractor classes. So if an insured is looking for just coverage on themselves, like I said, employers will accept that now. And then any ineligible applicants would include bail bondsmen, check cashing services, and talent agencies. The top classes would include accountants, day spas, barbers, law firms, printers, libraries, and engineers. Moving into automotive services, employers offers applicants offering roadside towing, motorcycle repair, or semi-truck repair are ineligible. So that would include any sort of emergency towing services or just kind of like offsite automotive services. And then the top classes would include auto repair, service centers, gas station, and oil change garages. And lastly, on this slide, manufacturing applicants who offer delivery within a 50-mile radius are eligible, similar to the other retail and driver exposure. Over 50 miles would be ineligible. Applicants with over 100 employees are subject to referral. And lastly, the top classes under this category would be paper products manufacturing, food, bakeries, clothing, and leather manufacturing. So as I mentioned prior, employers is expanding into artisan contractor classes. So I'm going to go through those now. And starting off, we have landscapers, and operations that would be eligible for landscapers are typically more simple landscaping operations, such as flower and small bush trimming and maintenance, lawn, mowing your lawn, blowing leaves, hardscaping less than 50%, snow removal less than 25% is all eligible. And then moving into ineligible operations, tree trimming on ladders over 8 feet, swimming pool contractors, excavation work, and mature tree farms. So employers, I really want to highlight this too, because I do see some tree trimming accidentally slip through. So you just want to make sure employers is not an appetite for those services at all. There is a height exposure with those that employers is just not comfortable with at this time. And then moving into plumbers and HVAC contractors who install, repair, and maintain HVAC systems, plumbers who install, fit, repair, and maintain water, waste disposal, drainage, and gas systems, and residential, commercial, industrial, and other buildings are all eligible operations with the plumber and HVAC class. Moving into ineligible, 35% or more subcontracted work would be ineligible. Work or drilling below 5 feet, use of ladders, lifts, or climb over 30 feet. So you'll notice too that with landscaping, the limit is 8 feet. However, there are certain other contractor classes where employers does allow larger height exposures. And then moving into maintain, install industrial boilers, working on well pumps or septic oil tanks, working on gas, sewer, or water mains. And lastly, perform remediation of asbestos, mold, or radon would all be ineligible. And then another new class code would be electricians that employers just expanded into. So what would be eligible would electrical apparatus installation and work on residential and commercial buildings and equipment. Ineligible under this category would be work or drilling below 5 feet or in confined spaces, public utilities, high voltage work, work on joint ventures or wrap-ups, use of ladders, lifts, or climb above 30 feet, use of large equipment such as bucket trucks, excavators, etc. And lastly, installation of solar panels or satellite dishes. Moving into flooring, so eligible operations, an example of this would be wood, carpet, tile, and laminate flooring installation. Ineligible would be remediation or removal of asbestos, mold, or lead-based paint. Carpentry or handyman services, such as carpentry or cabinetry work, I should say, and installation. So employers can do the wood flooring installation, but things such as installing or remodeling a kitchen with new cabinetry would be ineligible with employers. And lastly, silica dust exposure as well. Moving into painting, so some examples of eligible operations under painting would be interior and exterior painting under 30 feet on both residential and commercial structures, or decorative shop painting. Ineligible would be perform work on or adjacent to roads, bridges, overpasses, water towers, or ships. So for example, employers would not be in appetite for any like road painting work on highways or any roads in general. Carpentry or handyman repairs, as I mentioned before, work on public utilities, work on joint ventures or wrap-ups, use of ladders or lifts, or climb above 30 feet. Own, rent, or hire large equipment such as bucket trucks, cherry pickers, etc. Use of industrial coatings or sandblasting. And lastly, remediation or removal of asbestos, mold, or lead-based paint. And then just in summary of the top workers' comp classes, starting with hotels and motels, automotive services, repair centers, clerical offices. And I wanted to highlight clerical work. And I did mention that a little before with the medical offices. So employers has to include the governing operations of the insured and cannot just write for a clerical office. And I want to define a clerical office as an employee who just works in an office, whether that's at home or in an office setting, and does not interact with clients, does not travel. All work is done purely in that office space. So just a little more information regarding that: logistics and logistics brokering, freight forwarding, managing dispatching vehicles, and staffing operations are all not eligible with employers. So although the insured might not directly be doing that work, any sort of interaction with logistics, like truckers or heavy, like long haul trucking exposures, would not be eligible.
Brian, can I jump in here for just a quick second?
Yeah, sure.
Just to jump onto the clerical services, just want to mention that we do have a flagging system between Attune and employers. We are always looking at classes that are classified as 8810 only. A lot of times the names of the insured will be indicative of what the insured is actually doing. So for example, Brian had mentioned we don't write vape shops, but if it comes in as Brian's vape shop, we're going to pull that. And if it says clerical only, or it's, answered, no, we don't do vapes, we're going to flag that. So, but clerical is probably, and this is not isolated to Attune or anything, but we do see the most misclassified accounts submissions come through under clerical. So you cannot write just a portion of the business just because somebody works in the clerical office. You can't just insure for workers' comp only the clerical person. It must be the entire operation. So we are always looking for that, and it could just be an educational thing, but we will, even if you bind it that day, we may pull that bind order. So just want to make sure that everybody's aware that that could happen. So, if you are not sure how to classify something, the Attune team is very happy to help you with the classification.
Mm-hmm. And then moving down to physicians, retail stores and drivers, colleges, restaurants, beverage preparation shops, meat stores, and supermarkets are all of our top workers' comp classes with employers right now. And then I'm going to do a quote demo shortly, but I just want to go over the best practices while quoting and working with the employer's product. So when quoting, it's extremely important to have the correct FEIN for the insured. And our system can flag a placeholder, which I'll show you later. Any sort of fake FEINs can be flagged in the Attune system. So like I said, you just want to make sure you have that correctly while quoting. It can lead to fines with the state if the FEIN isn't entered correctly, which is just a hassle for the insured, you as the agent, employers, and our team to get that settled. And also, for example, if an FEIN isn't entered correctly and say a competing agency goes in and quotes it outside of Attune, they will reserve that quote over us because the FEIN isn't entered correctly. So like I said, you just want to make sure you have that before quoting. And then moving down, there is an option while quoting to include a operations description. So you want to make sure that, like Diantha and myself mentioned, that we're running the full operations of the insured and not just the clerical portion. Moving into payroll, you want to make sure you have accurate, or as most accurate payroll as you can while quoting and binding, to help with a swifter audit process at the end. So if you enter in the expected payroll and then at the end it ends up being extremely different, it can lead to an increase in premium for the insured at the end, like a large bill. That would be easier if it was just entered in correctly on the front end. And then lastly, moving into officer exclusions, I'll show you how our portal applies the state laws, but just good record keeping would be to collect the signed exclusion forms for your insured, And feel free to ask any questions to make sure, reach out to our team with any questions to make sure the officers are excluded properly on the policy, because another issue would be we see at audits sometimes the officer isn't excluded properly, and that can also lead to an increase or inclusion of the officer where you wanted to actually exclude them. So like I said, you can always reach out to us to confirm that the officer is properly excluded.
Brian, since you mentioned the audit, I just want to remind everybody, every single work comp submission is going to be audited at the end of the year. And so these are some of the top reasons for an audit to be, for the insured not to have a great audit, because maybe payroll was understated, or the officer wasn't included. And that if you don't put the appropriate inclusion exclusion on the form, there could be a large charge for the officers. So we want to make sure, please make sure that you guys are asking your clients to show their intent by signing those exclusion forms on the quotes. And so you are properly doing that, because we cannot go back a year later and fix that, because the intent was there, but it was never notified to us. So just keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I do see one question really quick from Catherine. Yes, officers can be included depending on the state. So you need to know the state laws, if they can be included or excluded, because it is based on entity type, the title of the officer, and in the state. So you need to just make sure that you are doing the research on that. And if you need help, the Attune team does have access to this information, and they can help you with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry to jump in, Diantha, just to add to that, and Brian will cover this in the quote demo, but our portal will actually apply the state laws to the quote. So depending on the business organization and the state, our portal will allow or not allow you to include officers or exclude officers, depending on, because it's a case-by-case basis. It's hard to know all of the cases, and our portal will help you with that.
Mm-hmm.
One more question one more question before we move on from the officer. Somebody is asking about the forms that need to be submitted, and just want to state this out loud, that we need you to collect the forms and keep them in your file. If we, at some point, if we need to do an audit, we will ask Attune to get that form from you. So please just make sure that you are getting the proper forms and keeping it in your file.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I won't.
And then moving into payment plans. So employers offers a couple payment plans depending on premium size. So they offer 100% down annual pay. They have quarterly pay for policies over 1,000. They have two 10 payment plan options, one 20% for policies over 1,000, and then one 10% policies over 2,500. And lastly, employers does offer a pay-as-you-go, which is their precise pay for policy sizes over $1,500. And a benefit of using the precise pay or pay as you go is it can lead to less audit variance if you're reporting your payroll throughout the whole policy term and more frequently. Like I said, it leads to less audit variance at the end. And then right now I'm going to just switch over to our staging environment to do a workers' comp demo for everyone. Can everyone see this screen?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So this is, as everyone's familiar with, this is the Attune portal. To create a new account, you just go to new client, and then I'm going to quote a florist today. So the name of my company is Brian's Flowers LLC. That'll be the DBA as well. And then, so there are certain flags in the Attune system where to avoid duplicates, I previously quoted this in our staging environment, so this will pop up, but this interacts similarly to how the regular environment will work. So it can help prevent any duplicate submissions. So you can have all your insured information under one account instead of multiple. And then next, we'll move into the mailing address. And then here, like I mentioned before, you can add a description of operations. So I'm just going to put florist. And then here is where you enter the class code. So this is just to create on the account level. So you can go down and see based on what you enter for description of business, which products on the Attune platform the insured is eligible for. So since we're quoting with employers, I'm going to go to that today. And then here is where you'll enter the FEIN. So I'm just going to do a placeholder. Like I said, you do not want to do that, but for quoting purposes today. But I'm going to show you what would happen if you were to type in like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or like 88888. You'll get an error message saying, is this a real FEIN? FEINs are used to calculate premiums, so please no placeholder value. So you will get a warning. And like I said, it's really important to enter in the correct FEIN from the scratch. And then you'll enter the organization type and then how many locations. So one important thing I want to note too, I do see insureds here and there have PO boxes as mailing address. Our locational address will just pre-populate to what is entered as the mailing address. So if it was a PO box used for mailing, you just want to make sure you update the actual business location because you will receive an error at bind if you try to bind with employers using a PO box, and we'll have to correct it on our end. So just another important note about that. And then you'll enter a number of employees. So I'm going to put 5 today. And then we're quoting a florist. And then payroll, I'm going to do 250,000. And then if you wanted to add multiple class codes, say there was an accountant at the insured hired, you can add like an 8810 here to do the bookkeeping work in the back. So you can add multiple classes. For simplicity's sake, I'm just going to do the one for today. And then here is where you add the officer inclusions or exclusions. So as I mentioned before about how our system applies state laws, I'll kind of show you how that works. So you pick from, so each entity type will have different title options. For LLCs, there's 2 different title options, managing member and members. I'm going to select managing member, and then you'll enter in the ownership. And since in this example, it's just me going to do 100%. And then here's the option where you can exclude or include. So since this is, I do have to go back actually. Yep. Okay. Just want to make sure that was LLC. So in New York, I'm quoting my business is located in New York. LLC members are automatically excluded. So you will only have the option to include for LLCs in New York. And like we mentioned prior, it changes by state. So it's really important to look up the rules and figuring out whether you need to exclude or include and how that would apply in the Attune system. And like I said, you can always reach out to us to make sure you did this correctly. But in New York, like I mentioned, you can only include officers for LLCs, not exclude. So I'm going to show you what would happen if you were to try to exclude. So you'll get an error message that says a managing member cannot be scheduled as excluded in New York. That is because they're automatically included. So if you were trying to exclude the officer, you can just remove this and just leave it as such because they're automatically excluded. But if you wanted to include, you would have the option to do so. So if I wanted to include myself in coverage, I could do include and move forward with it. And then on the next screen, we have the policy info. So you'll enter in the effective date. I just put today's date, and then the employer's liability limits options are here as well.
Brian, can I jump in really quick?
Yep.
Might be good to let you know that we can do same day binds, but if you're trying to remarket your business or you have an opportunity that's sometime in the future, you can put your submission in up to 120 days in advance of the effective date. So we do have a pretty broad range timeline for you to be able to enter your submission.
And then I'm gonna move on. So here is where you'll enter in the loss history. And you will only need to check the box if there is loss history. So if you don't have any, you can just leave all these blank. I'm showing you just for demo purposes, but I'm not gonna enter in any losses, but this is what it'll look like if you have to enter losses. So you just pick the policy year. Employers ask typically for the past 4 years if the business has been open for 4 years or more, or it'll just ask for however long the business has been open for. So you'll enter a number of claims, total amount paid, and total amount reserved, and the effective date is there. If you were to try to type in 0 here and then move on, it won't let you. So like I said, you just want to keep that box unchecked if there are no claims. And then here's the underwriting portion of the quote flow. So there will be class specific questions. So that'll depend on the operations and what you're quoting. So the one for florists, this is the class specific underwriting question. And also, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention. So this is where you'll attest that you collected the signed officer exclusions, any applicable officer exclusions, that you'll maintain them. And what Diantha mentioned a little earlier. So in case employers has to do an audit and reach out to Attune to collect officer exclusion forms to make sure we have all of them, this is just attesting that you keep them in your file. And then moving on, like I said, you'll have the class specific underwriting questions. In this case, the question is, does the applicant have any of the following: a rental operation, sell marijuana, sell CBD products, or vapes and cigarettes, sell live animals other than domestic pets, is a pawn shop, and lastly, firearms that comprise over 20% of sales. And then these are the general underwriting questions. These are asked for all classes of business. The applicant engages some subcontractors or independent contractors. The applicant uses motor vehicles for business purposes, any prior coverage declined, canceled, non-renewed, etc. The applicant provides employee health plans. The applicant leases employees from other employers. And lastly, applicant owns, operates, or leases aircraft or watercraft. And I want to mention some of these questions do have cascading questions associated with them. So say the insured is a real estate agent office and they have some clerical work, but they have a couple 1099 employees who are their realtors or real estate agents. Employers can write insureds who do engage in subcontractors or independent contractors. However, those 1099 employees or subcontractors do have to carry their own workers' comp insurance, and the insured must collect those COIs to make sure that they are covered in the event of a loss. So that is what these questions are referring to. And then another cascading question would be the use of motor vehicles. So if the insured does have drivers, employers wants to make sure that motor vehicle records are checked upon hire and annually. And if the
sorry. I just wanted to jump in really quick before you move on to the next one. The motor vehicles. So we see a lot of people just don't answer this. They just leave these blank, especially when they're like a plumber or, or a flooring person. So people that we know it's obvious they have to get to their job site somehow. Just make sure that you're saying yes to this. And we are looking for those that they know who's driving their vehicles. But one area that I did see somebody get hung up on a little bit was when it's, maybe an owner only policy and they do drive a motor vehicle. Of course, they have access to their motor vehicle records. So just for simplicity, just put yes. They are, because they already know. But if they have employees, we want to know that they're also pulling those records. So just for a little clarity there. Sorry.
No, you're good. And then just moving down, the second question is, does the applicant provide group transportation when 5 or more employees are in the vehicle at one time? I'm just going to leave all these blank for simplicity purposes, and then we'll just hit submit to gather the quote. And then there's a little quoting game as well you can play as the quote processes. And then you'll see your quote pop up if it's approved, and you can download the quote letter here. Download it. And then this is what an employer's quote looks like. You'll have the named insured up top, effective date, quote number, and then you'll have the rating info down here. You'll have the limits here, rating info down here. Payment plan options. So like I said, they depend on the premium size. So employers will put any of the options that are available down here. Deductible info, and yeah. And then I'm going to show you the bind portion. So if the insured's ready to bind, what you'll do is then, and also you can edit the quote too at any time. So if you need to change any of the info, update the payroll, you can do that here. And then when you're ready to bind, you'll just click bind. You'll then again attest about the officer exclusion information. And then you'll select an effective date. You'll make sure the FEIN is correct. You'll enter in insured email address.
It's really important too to put the insured email address and not the agency email, because we are sending out notification to those insureds to sign up for the policyholder portal so they can make their payments online directly to employers. Otherwise, if you put your own, then it's going to go to you. You could, and then the insured might miss out on, being able to do business with us easily.
I do want to mention too, don't believe this was mentioned earlier, employers is direct bill to the insured. So they will receive via email payment instructions, and they'll also receive policy information or the policy and invoice in the mail as well. And then here you'll select the payment plan. Is the insured mailing address the same as the billing address? You'll select yes or no, payment plan, and then you'll hit bind.
So somebody asked how they get a copy of the policy docs and things like that. Are you able to?
Yep, I can clarify. So, so after you go in and bind, our Attune team will send the agent of record a copy of the policy and invoice. We'll send the first invoice and to our agents shortly after bind. It's within, I want to say, a couple days after bind. However, you can always reach out. It takes overnight to process the policy, up to 48 hours. So I would just wait at least 24 hours to reach out if you need the policy earlier, but we can provide a binder shortly after bind in the meantime. But policy documents from our team typically get sent out within a couple days after bind. And then, like I said, directly to the insured as well. And then after bind, you'll see an error that says error loading policy documents. That relates to what I just mentioned. So it'll take about 24 to 48 hours for the policy to show up here, but you'll see all policy documents, endorsements, and invoices show up under the policy documents section. And to get to that, you just go to your bound policy and click view details, and then they'll all show up here. And then that was it on my end regarding quoting and binding.
So we've got some questions coming through. Somebody's asking, do we write new ventures? Yes, we do write new ventures. But if they have an employee that has been working and there is no coverage, that's considered a lapse in coverage, and we do not write that. Or if they let their policy from a prior carrier lapse, we don't want that either. And I believe there was one other question. Are insureds required to have an email for interaction with Attune or employers? Not sure about Attune, but I can speak for employers just based on what Brian was, showed before. We do want to have a real email address so we can actually try to get so we can communicate with the insured to sign up for the portal, for the policyholder portal for employers. What about Attune, you guys?
Yeah, so for in this case, we typically don't interact with the insured. We believe that brokers are a fundamental chain, and I should say a piece of the chain. So the insured should really be reaching out to you as their trusted advisor rather than Attune directly, because we don't want to kind of get in your way. You're the ones with the relationship with the Attune or with the insured. So we think they should reach out to you. It only really comes down to the audit where the insured needs an email.
Some good questions coming through.
I know people are active today. I love it.
Do you run reports, or does the applicant have to submit the MVRs and loss runs? No, we do not need those. The only time we would need a loss run is if something got referred to underwriting and they were trying to write a middle market account, which we should mention. We do write middle market accounts, and we've been doing a lot more of those. So once something gets referred to the underwriter and she's reviewing it, she may require the loss runs. So for example, if you're writing in New Jersey and it's an account over 50,000, it would get referred. So it is most likely that the loss runs, but on a normal transaction, you just go through the Attune platform and you answer their questions. It's all we need you to do. At most of the business is going to quote straight through with no additional documentation. We're on the honor system. Somebody asked about they missed the talk about signatures on applications. Again, that's something we would ask you to keep in your file. You do not have to send them to employers. The only Accord application that employers ask is for the state of Florida. For somebody who was asking about Florida, we'll call them out. We do need the assigned Florida Accord form, and that must be sent to employers. Send it to Attune first, and the Attune will send it to us.
Yeah, and the Accord can be downloaded from the Attune portal post quote for you to keep in your file and get signatures.
So will the system somebody's asking, Don is asking, will the system flag for too many claims or high dollar amount? What would be acceptable? So our system has like a proprietary pricing model. And so, there could be, we are not in the business for rehabbing bad accounts. So we typically the system will flag something. I don't have the magic number because every account is different, and it could be like you could have an account that's $1 million and they might have 250,000 in claims. Is that high to us? I don't know. But if you have a $500 account and you have $30,000 in claims, that could be in multiple claims, that could be not an account we want to be on. So we are okay with some claims, but and when something gets referred to underwriting and there's, and the underwriter says, okay, I just want to take a look at the loss runs. That's when I would think that you would want to, probably, we're going to ask about claims info. So I know that's not a definitive answer, but it's a depends. So Attune does take our Accord app, once an account is bound, they will pull those documents back into their system. So for Florida, you can pull the Accord form. Is that correct? Am I overstating?
Yeah, you can pull it.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
you can pull it and get that Florida Accord signed from the list.
Wait, Diantha, do you know, I don't know for Florida, is it just the general application, or is it, you know how the for Florida policies, does employers provide the Florida specific Accord from the website? Okay, cool.
It's the Florida Accord
Okay.
130 workers, 130, I
Okay.
believe. Do you guys have a updated list for appetite that you share on your site? Is there anywhere that they can see our appetite?
Yeah, I can show you on our portal too. So if you go to the support tab, and then go to on the sidebar here, you'll see workers' comp underwriting guidelines. These should be up to date. And then we have a list. It's a 22-page document with just employers' eligibility information with all the class codes here.
So, Gienda, I see your question. Apologize. Oh, Glenda, sorry, my eyesight's going. You asked if she asked the agent would take the down payment or the customer will receive the payment options and will be able to make his own payment via email. So typically we would like the insured to make payment. That's best, and they can actually set up their own login for just like a insured facing login to make payments. But if you do take the down payment, you're able to go to employer's website, and there's actually just a one-time payment option. You don't need a login, and you'll be able to make a payment that way.
Somebody else is asking if a submission is referred to underwriting, how long for a reply? Or and does the reply go directly to the agent? So I just wanted to state that our contract is with Attune. So our reply is going to go to the Attune email box, and they will they'll work with you. And Brian and Shane, can you guys talk to how long it usually takes for a response from underwriting?
Yeah, so as soon as we hear from employers, it takes about a day or two, as long as we have all the information from our agent's end. The referral process takes about a day or two once we get what is needed from employers referral wise.
So we try to turn things around pretty quickly as long as we get the data that we need.
Mm-hmm.
Anuradha, I see your question in the chat, and apologies if I pronounce your name incorrectly. You can get a list of the class codes by actually going to the Attune portal, going to support, and then on the right-hand side, the bottom of the underwriting guidelines section is the workers' comp underwriting guidelines, and that will have all of the eligible class codes. It won't list a specific class code because they can vary from state to state, but it will list the types of businesses that we can entertain.
Okay, I missed the answer to the prior coverage with a lapse. We do not write or we do not want an account that has a lapse in coverage, because if there is a claim in the time that there is a lapse in coverage, then guess who has to pay the claim? And that would be employers. So we would choose not to do that. We don't want to take on that risk, even with the no loss letter, because believe it or not, some people have fibbed about that. So that there's no losses, and then it turns out there's big losses. So we prefer, and we if we know that there is a lapse, we will decline it. Any other questions? These are great questions.
Yeah, I appreciate everyone being so active. You're really keeping us on our toes. This is great.
Oh, I think we missed one question from Richard Zanka. Sorry if I messed up your last name. What are the customer service hours of operation? That would be you guys.
I just got that one, Diantha.
Huh?
I just got that. I just answered in the chat, but it's
Oh,
9
sorry,
to
Miss-
6 Eastern Standard Time.
And Denise, sorry I missed your question before in the Q&A section. She's asking where in the portal can documents be uploaded. So if you actually go to support and then help center, the same place where you would go to pull the guidelines, that's where you can go in. It asks, what can we help you with? You would choose the closest one, type your message, your email address. And depending on which option you choose, I believe you can go with other and you'll be safe and you'll be able to upload documents.
Okay, so I want to just address, are all policies on a quarterly reporting form? No. No, we are direct bill and we have an annual audit. If you are doing a precise pay, which is a pay as you go, then the insured would report their payroll on their pay period, each pay period. But no, we don't do quarterly reporting. And then, Richard, you're saying accept an account that has a renewal expiring with the state's assigned risk. What I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to here. Are you referring to a lapse in coverage? Because we are not a state entity.
Yeah, I guess it would also depend on the type of risk. We can't blanketly say yes or no to that one, unfortunately.
I'm not sure what that means. What are we referring to a lapse in coverage? Oh, hard to place accounts that have gone to the. Most likely, if an account has been hard to place and it's gone to the unassigned risk, then it's probably outside of employer's appetite.
And Denise also just asked, the pay-as-you-go option, is it every pay period or monthly? I believe the insured can set it up as they'd like, but it's every pay period. So if it's weekly, bi-weekly, the whole concept and the beauty of precise pay is that it keeps the insured squared up with employers throughout the whole entire policy period. So when it comes to the audit, there are no surprises where the insured might owe a large amount of money. So it's really in the insured's benefit. If they have a payroll partner, such as ADP or something like that, they can set it up with the payroll partner and kind of just forget about it. And it works very well like that.
Well, I think we're right at time, or maybe a little, sorry, a minute over.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Diantha, for coming by today, and thanks to Brian for assisting and leading the webinar, and Shane for the support and helping answer some questions here. Thank you all for attending. Another reminder, I will be sending out the recording along with the slides and some PDFs that we have that are helpful. So keep an eye on your email for that either later today or tomorrow. And I don't know if Brian and Diantha, if you have any last things to say, but yeah, really appreciate you both and appreciate employers being such a great partner.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for your trust in employers and Attune. And we really appreciate all the business that you drive our way.
Yeah, thank you all for joining, and especially for being so active. This was a very fun to be a part of. If there are any other questions that we didn't get to, feel free to reach out to help@attuneinsurance.com or chat in, and we'll be happy to cover anything that we missed.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.
All right. Thanks so much.
Bye, everyone.
Go on, everyone.